All right. Well, welcome back to inBROZtigators. Thanks for sticking with us. So uh, we're going to slowly march through the Warren Commission report, and we're glad you're joining us. And hopefully you can read along, provide us with your comments, because, ultimately in the end, our goal here is to just kind of have a learning experience, digging through things. So if you see things that we missed, or if you disagree with what our conclusions are from reading the report, read it yourself and point out your thoughts, and we'll take it from there. Now we're going to start marching through the details and really just follow the organization of the Warren Commission report. So the second section, or the second chapter, really gets into the assassination itself. So the beginning of it focuses on, kind of the selection of Dallas and the selection of the route specifically.
Yeah. So I guess this part of the Warren report would be good to timeline certain things. That way we kind of have a better idea of when there could be a plot, or maybe you could plan things here or there, or maybe not. Maybe there wasn't enough time, but this is a good chapter to kind of pinpoint those details.
What the report says is the basic decision on a November trip to Texas was made at a meeting of President Kennedy, Vice President Johnson, and Governor Connolly on June 5th, 1963, at the Cortez Hotel in El Paso, Texas. So that's when, President, Vice President, Governor agree that there will be a trip to Texas in general.
I think this is also important too, especially if you're keeping track of what's going on with Oswald as well, because I feel like this timing could coincide with some of the things that he was doing. I know we're not really going to get into that in this episode, but I think that's why this information is also pretty good, is that you can kind of see the coordination, or maybe not see a coordination, or maybe that's just 100% a coincidence, right?
It's kind of the nuts and bolts of it, right? So I guess the next kind of important date in the report is that on October 4th, Governor Connolly goes to the White House, and that's when he's left in charge of planning the events, right? So now you kind of have a handoff where the governor knows of the trip and knows roughly November, right? So again, just kind of laying the foundation for the timing, right? So the assassination occurred in November, but it's not until October 4th where Governor Connolly, is put in charge of actually planning kind of the details. The timing of all these things is interesting, if nothing else, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly, and hopefully you can correct me on this, but wasn't it in the report that Connolly was a bit hesitant about the motorcade at first because he didn't like the timing?
Well, he was definitely hesitant. It says that he's hesitant about the motorcade, right?
Because he felt like there wasn't enough time, and then until he found out that they were going to extend the trip, and then he was kind of relieved, it seemed like.
Right.
I don't know how important of a detail that is, other than it seemed like, and I can see it from maybe a political standpoint, is that you really want to sell to the crowd, and if you're going to be there, you want to be present. So like they were trying to hit as many spots as they could, and I think Connolly initially wanted to save time because he didn't think they would have enough time to drive through Dallas, but they felt it was important, so they created additional time to make it happen. But yeah, I just found it interesting that it seemed like maybe that was a tactic to get him to stay in Texas a little bit longer. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean that's like an interesting detail, because it's just being opposed to the motorcade because there's not enough time. I guess just to do it. Okay. So I guess it establishes that the president himself was adamant that there be a motorcade, right? And I guess that's an important fact, because at least a fact for the report, right? It's an important detail because if you're trying to establish that there is no conspiracy, right? You're trying to make things like, oh, well, the reason why it was like that is because the president wanted it, not because some potential, bad actor was trying to sell the idea, right? It was like,
Right.
no, 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 no. The president wanted it, right? So it kind of absolves everyone else in the room if Connolly's like in charge of the trip and he's like, no, no, I don't want you to do a motorcade. And then the president's like, no,
Maybe
we should,
it's like
right?
reverse psychology, right? It's like,
Yeah, yeah. On page 30, they say that they searched for threats, right? They search on November 8th, they search PRS for threats, right? And there's reports that Lee Harvey Oswald, made a threat to blow up the Dallas office of the FBI building because they kept harassing his wife, or in his view, harassing his wife, but because they were interviewing his wife, right? So you have the assassin in the building, and he's made a threat to
well,
commit a terrorist act, right?
not
And you don't, you know what I mean? You don't put two and two together.
yeah. The funny part is, well, not the funny part is like he's literally directly on the route. He's not even just within the vicinity, right? Where like
Yeah.
they should be looking at every possible suspect within the whole
He's-
area, but he's directly on the route.
Warren Commission report says that on November 14th, the actual route was selected, right? And the report talks about the route, shows a map of downtown, but doesn't really show kind of the start point and end point, right? So, we're looking at kind of the exhibit number 2113, where there's a relatively large map of downtown. And both Love Field, which is the airport that the president arrived at, and World Trade Mart, which is where the president was supposed to give a talk but never arrived, is also north of downtown Dallas. On page 32 of the report, they say that the traditional parade route in Dallas was along Main Street, since the tall buildings along the street gave more people an opportunity to participate. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like there were too many options given that, right? Like if you knew where the airport was and you knew you were going to go down Main Street, right? And is Main Street a one-way street?
No, I don't think Main Street is. I think it's a two-way street.
Okay. So there was some choice to whether or not they were going to go east to west or west to east, right? But aside from that, seems as though you really wouldn't have to be that well connected to know, Main Street was probably where the parade was going to happen, right?
Right. Because I think too, what the Warren Commission is trying to do is just trying to suggest that there wasn't enough time if there was some type of conspiracy, because I guess the way they lay it out is that the route wasn't really confirmed until the 14th, which is like,
Yeah, and that's how it's written, right? Yeah, and that's key, right? So they're saying, okay, route wasn't even selected until November 14th.
and then it was
And
published on the 19th.
yeah, so they say in the commission report for those reading along, on pages 39 through 40, that on November 15th it was generally known what the route was going to be. And again, we're talking about, okay, they're going to go down Main Street in downtown Dallas.
It really makes it suggest that, yeah, maybe there was just some random person that just on a whim happened to see that, hey, the motorcade is going past my building. So they really try to play it off as if some random guy just happened to see the route and then just, I guess, went ahead with the assassination or whatever. But so regardless, they were going to find their way to go through Main Street or through downtown.
Yeah.
And then all those buildings are still around that area to where, like, you're going to pass that location, whether you're going to go north or south on the highway, you're still going to take the triple underpass to get there, right?
Well, yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out is the triple underpass part. I found the specific words in the report on page 39 where they say, like, there were two newspapers that reported the general route, right, on November 15th. So they're saying that, okay, the Secret Service confirmed the route on November 14th, talked to the police on November 14th and 15th, and that was published on the 15th. Seems kind of fast, but okay. But then they say that they published that they will loop through downtown, probably on Main Street, en route from Dallas Love Field on its way to the Trade Mart. And then they give like the exact turn by turn kind of directions that they're going to take on page 40, right? Where they say, the motorcade will pass through downtown on Harwood, west on Main, turning back to Elm at Houston, and then out to Stebbins Freeway to the Trade Mart. And that's on November 19th. Go back to our map here. So I've drawn in red. These are our notations, right? In red, kind of Main Street, westward direction on Main Street. And then it's just a kind of peculiarity of downtown Dallas that to get onto the highway going north, you can't just go straight down Main Street. You actually have to turn up Houston Street and then turn left on the Elm. So that right turn from Main, you go to the black line here, which is you're on Houston, and then that black line makes that sharp turn, also in black, and then the blue is kind of highway. So, blue is kind of obvious, red is kind of obvious, and then you question, well, why not just continue straight on and go? But it's like if you know Dallas, you just can't turn right and go north, which, I mean, it seems kind of silly though, right? I mean, you would think that they could just shut down the road.
Yeah, because it's not like the president's coming, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, of all the things, it's like, well, no, we can't commit a traffic violation, but whatever.
It's funny that something that you just said, I didn't even think about it. Like, the way they position this is that there wasn't really much time to have a conspiracy to coordinate because, like, everything was just, like, kind of happening at last minute.
Right.
That's also kind of suspicious. Like, damn, you really didn't plan out the president's motorcade? No wonder why you got assassinated, right? Because it's like, why wasn't this, like, well thought out and, like, the route was actually picked months before, and then they had time to, like, go through and make sure, like, not the funny part was they went through the route to see if the time was correct, but they didn't go through the route to see if, like, the possibilities of maybe getting shot from a building. They didn't talk about those details. It was more or less they were trying to get the quickest way from Love Field to basically the luncheon, hitting most of the popular spots going through Dallas.
Right.
But nothing about security. Like, it's kind of weird.
The critical date, right, that we haven't talked about yet is when did Oswald get his job, right? And in the report, they say that, let's see, let's get the exact page. But on page 138 of the report, they say Lee Harvey Oswald was hired on October 15th, 1963. So on October 15th, he got his job at the School Book Depository, right? So looking at the points in time when anybody could have known this stuff, right? October 5th is after June when they made the decision to go to Dallas. After Connolly on October 4th was put in charge of, kind of arranging the trip. So, and then, of course, like you were saying, not enough time, right? That was before the Secret Service was in charge of picking the route, and, a few weeks before when it was actually published in the newspaper, and when the police would have known, right? But, like, to me, it's sort of like the reason to me why, like, Connolly being in charge or the decision to make the trip, why those dates are important. Not necessarily because we're saying Connolly was involved in any way, but the more people that know, they have people working for them, they know, you know what I mean? It kind of broadens out the circle, right? Of people with knowledge of the events, right?
What I understood too, that I felt like the vice president also had a lot of, I guess, say in this trip as well.
Right, because he's from Texas, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that makes
This
sense,
is
right?
his backyard. So
Not to say that we're pointing the finger at any of these people individually.
It was almost like a process flow, or not even process flow, but it was more or less like.
I think you're right. Process flow. It was just like this happened on this date.
It was just a matter of fact. Like this is just a standard, ordinary. This is just everything was to what you would expect.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing to see here.
It wasn't like raising questions. It's just basically staying like
there's no analysis.
Yeah.
There's no analysis of the dates, which is what we're questioning. Like, okay, you have like these dates that you've established. Does this make any sense whatsoever, right? To prove or disprove anything. And I think the report is trying to imply that this had to be on a whim because this stuff wasn't even published until the 14th and 15th, right? But you have him in the building, right? And he goes there and gets a job 6 weeks before the assassination occurs. It's just wild, right?
The character himself, Oswald, is almost as if like he was trying to get caught. Like if you read all the stuff about him and all the things that he said, or all the claims that he said, it's like he was trying to get caught the whole time.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously he wasn't caught, but it was just like, it's just weird.
Well, they caught him eventually.
Well, yeah, but it's just like he tried to assassinate someone before he actually assassinated the general, right?
Yeah.
And then he's been all over basically the South of the United States and Mexico and Russia, and he's saying all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, how do you miss that guy?
Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you
later episodes we'll get into all those details.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's like a wild situation. But in terms of conspiracy, right? Like to me, it's incredibly believable that someone could have known, Oswald could have known either, you know, through assistance or whatever, where to be and where to get a job, right? Because, okay, why are we saying this? Well, if you know you're going through Main Street along the traditional parade route and you have to get on the highway, you're going to drive past that building. And it's going to be a great place to be if you want to commit that crime.